Standing in front of the full-length mirror in the bridal suite, staring out through the open double doors at 40 completely vacant chairs reserved for my side of the aisle, my hands began to tremble. It was 20 minutes before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, and not a single member of my family had arrived. Desperate and fighting back a rising tide of panic, I dialed my mother Diane for the 4th time. When the call finally connected, the soothing sound of ocean breeze and clinking glassware drifted through the phone receiver. When I choked back a sob and asked where she was, she let out a light, dismissive laugh that felt like a blade straight through my chest. "Oh, was that today, Clara?" she asked casually. "Your sister Haley and I were just so completely drained from the work week, and a last-minute weekend at the coastal spa resort just sounded so much more relaxing. Don't be so dramatic, sweetie. You can always celebrate with us another time." In the background, I heard my younger sister Haley giggling and telling the poolside waiter to bring another round of strawberry margaritas. I stood frozen in the center of the bridal suite, the phone pressed against my ear, unable to draw in a full breath. The silence between us stretched on, heavy and suffocating. 28 years of sacrificing my own happiness, 28 years of being the invisible, dependable daughter who fixed every disaster, crashed down on my shoulders all at once. But, as I looked into my own eyes in that mirror, staring at the exquisite lace train of my ivory gown, the sting of betrayal hardened into a cold, quiet clarity. I did not scream. I did not beg. I simply hung up the call without saying a single word, took a long, steady breath, wiped a stray tear from my cheek, and walked out to marry the man who actually valued my existence. Before the reception was over, I posted a single photograph on Facebook in my wedding dress, standing proudly beside 2 extraordinary, unexpected guests who held the absolute keys to my family's financial survival. Within 2 hours, my mother and sister saw the post, checked out of their luxury resort in pure terror, and rushed back to the city, arriving at my reception hall breathless, disheveled, and pale-faced. Welcome to my story. Please drop a comment with the city or country you are watching from today so I can see how far this journey travels. My name is Clara. I am 30 years old, and for as long as I can remember, our family dynamic had one unspoken rule. Haley was the shining star who deserved the world, and I was the workhorse whose only job was to pay for it. Growing up, Haley was the charismatic golden child who received praise for simply existing. When she barely passed high school, my parents threw an extravagant banquet. When I graduated at the top of my class with a degree in civil project management, my father glanced up from his newspaper, gave a polite nod, and asked if I could help pay for Haley's new car insurance. Over the years, as I built a successful career overseeing large-scale commercial restoration projects, their emotional neglect turned into calculated financial exploitation. 5 years ago, when my father's boutique consulting firm collapsed due to his poor management, I stepped in to keep a roof over their heads. I quietly took over the monthly mortgage payments on the historic estate they lived in, signed as the primary guarantor on their luxury vehicle leases, and managed the commercial property accounts that my late grandfather had left behind. Whenever my mother called, her voice was never filled with maternal warmth or curiosity about my life. It was always an urgent demand to cover Haley's mounting credit card debts, fund Haley's struggling interior design studio, or bail them out of an overdue tax lien. I tolerated the burden for years because I was trapped in the desperate, naive hope that if I just gave enough, worked hard enough, and sacrificed enough, they would finally see my worth and love me the way a family should. When Marcus proposed to me during a quiet autumn walk along the river, I felt a kind of pure, unconditional safety I had never known in my childhood. Marcus was patient, brilliant, and deeply protective of my peace. His parents had passed away when he was in college, but his extended family welcomed me with open arms, showering me with genuine kindness from the very first dinner. When planning the wedding, I gave my parents and sisters special engraved invitations 8 months in advance, personally reserved a block of luxury hotel suites for them, and ordered custom couture attire for Haley. Yet, during the entire planning process, my mother never once asked to see my dress, never offered to help choose florals, and repeatedly complained about how inconvenient the date was for Haley's social calendar. Still, I foolishly believed they would show up on the day itself. Looking at those 40 empty chairs in the chapel, the painful truth finally shattered my delusions. They did not forget my wedding, they simply did not care enough to be there. When the string quartet began to play the opening notes of the bridal march, the heavy oak doors of the chapel swung open. I took a deep breath, lifted my chin, and stepped forward onto the petal-strewn aisle alone. I refused to let my eyes drift toward the vacant pews on the left. Instead, I locked my eyes onto Marcus, who stood waiting at the altar with tears of profound devotion shining in his eyes. In that instant, every ounce of sorrow evaporated, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I was walking toward someone who truly cherished me. Just as the officiant stepped up to begin the ceremony, the side doors of the chapel opened quietly, and two distinguished guests slipped inside. It was Jonathan and Miriam Caldwell, Marcus's great-uncle and aunt. Jonathan Caldwell was a towering figure in regional commerce, an influential venture capitalist who controlled major investment trusts and commercial developments throughout the entire state. Miriam was a revered philanthropist, known for her fierce loyalty and sharp intellect. Unknown to my mother and sister, Jonathan Caldwell's holding company was also the primary financial backer and master landlord for the prime retail space housing Haley's interior design studio, as well as the senior lien holder on my parents' commercial business property. Seeing 40 empty seats on my side of the chapel, Jonathan and Miriam instantly read the room without a single word needed. With warm, reassuring smiles, they walked down the center aisle and took their seats in the very front row of the bride's side, sitting directly where my parents should have been. When the vows concluded, and the officiant called for witnesses to sign the legal marriage registry, Jonathan Caldwell stood up, straightened his suit jacket, and took the fountain pen with a proud smile. He officially signed his name as my primary witness and family sponsor, cementing a bond of respect that went far beyond mere bloodlines. By 8 in the evening, the grand ballroom of the reception venue was alive with warmth, music, and celebration. Surrounded by Marcus's incredible family, colleagues, and lifelong friends, I felt completely at peace. During a quiet moment near the grand staircase, Marcus gathered Jonathan, Miriam, and me for a photograph. Jonathan and Miriam stood on either side of us, beaming with genuine pride and wrapping their arms around us like true parents. Looking at the high-resolution photo on my phone, a sense of quiet justice took hold of me. I opened my personal Facebook account and uploaded the image for all our extended relatives, family friends, and local professional contacts to see. I kept the caption dignified, poised, and clear, blessed beyond words to marry my soulmate today, and deeply honored to have Mr. Jonathan Caldwell and Miriam Caldwell step in to fill our family pews, sign our marriage registry as official witnesses, and welcome me into their family with open arms. True family is defined by those who show up when it matters most. Within minutes, the post went viral across our social and business circles. Hundreds of mutual acquaintances, prominent business owners, and extended family members began liking, sharing, and commenting. People immediately recognized Jonathan Caldwell, a man whose endorsement could make or break careers in our city. The comments quickly shifted from congratulations to pointed questions. Where are Diane and Haley? How incredible of the Caldwells to step up for Clara. The notifications began pinging relentlessly across the network, automatically tagging my mother and sister while they were still lounging by the pool at their 5-star resort 3 hours away. Miles away, as the evening sun dipped below the horizon, my mother and sister were sitting in their plush lounge chairs, sipping cocktails and leisurely scrolling through their social feeds. When Brenda opened Facebook, expecting to see trivial wedding updates, her gaze landed directly on Jonathan Caldwell, standing shoulder to shoulder with me in my bridal gown. Her cocktail glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the stone patio. Jonathan Caldwell was not just a prominent high society guest. He was the majority creditor whose firm held the lease guarantees on my parents' commercial offices and the sole private equity investor underwriting Haley's design studio. Panic hit them like an icy deluge. They opened the comment section to see the city's most respected community leaders praising the Caldwells while openly questioning the absence of the bride's own mother and sister. The reality of their catastrophic blunder struck with full force. Their cruel decision to discard my wedding had been laid bare in front of every colleague, client, and patron who mattered to their livelihood, and the most powerful man in their financial orbit had personally witnessed their callousness. In a frantic panic, my mother called my phone 6 times in rapid succession, but my phone remained completely silent on the bridal table. Desperate and terrified, Diane and Haley abandoned the remainder of their weekend stay, threw their belongings into their bags, and sped through the night toward the city. It was nearly 10 o'clock when the heavy double doors of our reception ballroom burst open. The music slowed as heads turned across the room. Diane and Haley stumbled into the hall, disheveled, sweaty, and pale as ghosts, still wearing their wrinkled resort linen attire. The smug, mocking tone from the afternoon phone call was entirely gone. My mother's eyes darted frantically across the room, instantly locking onto Jonathan Caldwell standing near Marcus and me with a glass of sparkling water. Breathing heavily, Diane rushed toward the head table, her voice trembling in a theatrical performance of manufactured grief. "Clara, my darling girl!" she cried out, her voice echoing uncomfortably across the quieted hall as she attempted to grab my wrists. There was a terrible breakdown on the highway, and our phones lost all reception. We drove through the night just to be by your side. Haley stood behind her, nodding furiously with wide, terrified eyes. Before I could even speak, Jonathan Caldwell stepped smoothly into the space between us. His tall, commanding presence and icy stare stopped my mother dead in her tracks. "Save your rehearsed excuses, Diane," Jonathan said, his voice quiet, steady, and razor-sharp across the room. "I have watched Clara handle major civic restorations for over 2 years, and she carries herself with unwavering integrity and dignity. You and your younger daughter, on the other hand, made your priorities abundantly clear when you chose a poolside lounge over your eldest daughter's wedding." "Mr. Caldwell, please," Haley stammered, her voice cracking as she realized who held her business in his hands. "It was an innocent misunderstanding, we promise." "Integrity is not a misunderstanding, young lady," Jonathan replied coldly. "Caldwell Holdings does not maintain commercial partnerships or extend favorable lease guarantees to individuals who lack basic decency, loyalty, and character. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, my executive board will initiate a full forensic audit on the commercial notes backing your design studio, as well as the overdue master lease agreements on your family's properties." Diane looked as though the floor had given way beneath her feet. She turned to me, tears of genuine panic streaming down her face. "Clara, please, tell him, you are my daughter. You cannot let this happen to our family." I stood beside Marcus, looking at the woman who had spent decades treating me as an afterthought. For the first time in my life, I felt no guilt, no obligation, and no sorrow. "You made your choice this afternoon, Mom," I said calmly, my voice steady and clear. "You chose a spa weekend over your daughter. Now you must live with the consequences of that choice. Please leave my reception." Marcus signaled the venue security team, and within moments, my mother and sister were firmly and quietly escorted out into the night, under the silent, disdainful gaze of every guest in the room. In the months that followed, the fallout unfolded with swift, unavoidable precision. Without my personal signature guaranteeing their loans, and with Caldwell Holdings terminating Haley's favorable commercial tenancy, Haley's boutique design studio folded within 60 days. My parents were forced to liquidate their luxury vehicles, surrender their commercial leases, and sell their historic home to pay off their outstanding debts, eventually downsizing to a modest rental apartment on the outskirts of town. They sent countless letters, voicemails and messages through distant relatives, begging for reconciliation and offering hollow apologies. But I maintained my boundaries with absolute resolve. I felt no need for anger or revenge. I simply closed the door on a toxic dynamic that had drained my spirit for decades. Today, Marcus and I share a peaceful home filled with mutual respect, laughter, and genuine support. Jonathan and Miriam have remained cherished mentors and family in our lives, proving every single day that true family is not built on shared blood or inherited obligation. True family is built on love, respect, and the conscious choice to stand beside each other when it counts. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. Have you ever had to draw a firm line with toxic family members to protect your own peace and dignity? I would love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Do not forget to mention what city or country you are tuning in from, and if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life drama and revenge stories.